Introducing Instagram Teen Accounts, a new way to keep your teen safer as they grow, like making sure they always have their seatbelt on.
All right, buckle up. Good job.
New Instagram Teen Accounts, automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.
This is Prop Points on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Prop Points. Jeff Erickson here with Nick Whalen. We are with Rotowire.com. Thanks for spending the next hour with us. We're going to be giving you lots of live updates of the Masters. Happy Masters Day for those of you who celebrate it. Just a reminder, too, that the Masters app might be the single best thing on the internet since the invention of the internet itself. We're going to do a little baseball updates. Got some afternoon baseball going on here. 2 games starting already going on. Another one about to start. We're going to do a little play it or pass it NBA style. Got Erik Halterman jumping down with us a little bit on the progressive guest line, getting his look at today's slate, just baseball generally, 2 weeks into the season. And then finally, we're going to do a little NFL draft talk as well, Nick. So looking forward to that. Let's jump into the Masters, though. Fun leaderboard. I think you can say that always at the Masters because it's such a small field.
Yes.
You can always say, hey, it's a great leaderboard.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched the Masters, especially on day one, and been disappointed in any way. Yeah, I don't know if there's ever truly been a bad or disappointing Masters tournament. And yeah, to give you a full update here, Tyrrell Hatton just took over the outright lead. So he's at 4 under, just birdied number 12, his 4th birdie of the day. Colin Morikawa sitting at 3 under. He's tied there with Scotty Scheffler and Justin Rose. Morikawa rolled in an incredible eagle putt, Jeff. Downhill, sloping all over the place, moving all over the place. If that thing didn't go in, that was going to roll significantly past the hole. But an eagle on 13 for Morikawa, followed up with a par on 14. So great start for him, and no complaints, certainly, about Scotty Scheffler's round. I guess he's cooled off a little bit, Jeff. And by cooled off, I mean he's gone 4 straight holes without a birdie.
Yeah, crazy. He's such a slacker. Really wish he'd ever do something. Hasn't bogeyed yet today. If I recall, he didn't bogey until Friday last year. So this is just kind of more of the same for him. Justin Rose, 3 under through 7. I think he birdied the very first 3 holes. Our low man in the clubhouse is Aaron Rye at 2 under. Corey Connors is 2 under. So is Greiserman, who broke through earlier in Florida, won a tournament there. So good to see him. And Jason Day also at 2 under. So, it's some good names up at the top. Any significant blowups? Have you seen anybody that you're like, oh, wow, I expected better from him?
Not necessarily. No, I mean, if you're looking at the leaderboard, the big outlier, of course, is Nick Dunlap, who is 13 over through 14 holes. I didn't hear a whole lot of Nick Dunlap to win the tournament chatter coming into the week. So, no, I mean, in terms of some of the names that we've been keeping an eye on, I had a long shot on JJ Spawn, to finish top 10. He's 3 over through 7. That's looking like it's going to be dead pretty early on. Billy Horschel, some people were in on him. He's +3 through 14. Feels like everybody loved Robert McIntyre, Jeff. And I wouldn't say this qualifies as a blow up, but
this is me
3 over through
hand.
14, just bogeyed 2 in a row, had a double on number 7 as well.
Yeah, this is me raising my hand. I have a lot of action on Bobby Mack. I think I recommended maybe even a sprinkle of a 60-1 to win, but I definitely have him top. I've got making the cut action on him. I think I've got top 10, top 20 on him. Love Bobby Mack. I liked his form coming in, and yeah, he's right there at 3 over, along with Phil Mickelson, also 3 over there. I know some people liked him as like best senior or best lefty. There's a few things that people are kind of in on Phil, and he's struggling so far as well. It's early, but guys like that usually don't win the Masters. Maybe they can rally to kind of get into some positions. It could possibly still be a forgiving cut. A lot of golf still left to be played, but those are a couple of mild. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed type of players right now.
Yeah. I think we got to mention Freddie Couples, by the way, Jeff, who is 1 under through 17. He is still 250,000 to 1, or excuse me, plus 250,000 to win the tournament. So, approach that with some degree of caution, but, fun round for him. Hold out earlier in the day for an eagle that was on the par 4 14th, hold it out from 191. Some other notables, Jordan Spieth having a very normal Jordan Spieth round, Jeff. 4 birdies, 1 bogey, 1 double. He's been all over the place. Max Homa got off to a really nice start, birdied the first 2 holes, then went par, bogey after that. And, I think given how Max Homa has played this year, I certainly wouldn't recommend, throwing anything down on him live. He is even still through 7. But I mean, if Max Homa could just make the cut, that feels like a huge victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And people forget he was tied for the lead going into the weekend. He was 6 under going into the weekend.
Right.
Had a great first round, survived the Friday with the massive wins. I don't know if everybody remembers how bad that was last year. And then, he fell off after that. But, the thing is, he was that good a year ago, and he's now like on this horrific slump that we're talking about. It feels like it's been forever since he's been good, but it hasn't been really that long. So I'd like to see him bounce back. Golf, it comes and goes so quickly. I still remember David Duval, top of the world, and then just fell apart in his game. Jordan Spieth threw a stretch like that. Matthew Fitzpatrick is going through a stretch like that right now. He's 1 under through 5. Like to see a little bit of bounce back from him as well.
Yeah. VSiN's Nick Whalen has gone through many, many stretches like that. Some would say it's just been a permanent, lifelong stretch of searching and searching. Now, I certainly empathize. So I ended up entering a Masters pool late last night as well, Jeff, where I went with Rahm, Connors, Harris English, Patrick Reed, Henley, and Spawn. So at least we get to drop the 2 lowest scores, or the 2 worst scores, I should say, highest scores. Nice. So probably going to be dropping Spawn, but feeling good about the rest of that. Still early, of course. For John Rahm, just had a par on number 1. So he's playing 2 as we speak. Ludwig Oberg, by the way, is sitting at 1 under. So still plenty to be settled. As you mentioned, Rory McIlroy also 1 under through 3.
I did 1 DFS lineup on DraftKings as well, and just entered in a bunch of different contests. That features Morikawa. I did kind of took the savings off of Scotty and Rory to go that. Got Cam Smith, Bobby Mack, of course, because I've been talking about him all week. Corey Connors, Sepp Straka still hasn't teed off yet, and then Patrick Reed. So, Patrick Reed 1 under through 14. So he's having a pretty decent start as well. We'll get you more updates on the Masters later on throughout the course of the show. We got some day baseball going on. We got a couple of early games that have started already, including the Guardians over the White Sox 4-1. Odd finish last night there. We saw Mike Tauchman go down with a hamstring injury halfway between third and home. Kind of was like Major League where they're just waving him into second base, except they hear his home plate, gently tagging him out to end the game. Just an odd finish. What's about the score of the tying run?
A very White Sox finish to a baseball game. Felt bad for Tauchman, obviously pulling up with the injury, and then a very light tag from the Guardians catcher. Just kind of a sorry man, but I got to do this. Got to end the game here. But this is kind of what you're used to. I think if you're a Chicago White Sox fan, they trail in the top of the 4th, 4-1. That is Jonathan Cannon going up against Gavin Williams. Got a couple homers on the board for the Guardians. 1 for Steven Kwan and 1 for Kyle Manzardo.
Yep, indeed. And Manzardo's a guy I've been kind of watching a little bit to see if he's going to get a breakout. Doesn't play a whole lot of first base. I was hoping he can gain that first base eligibility. Hasn't done so yet. Other game that's already into the 4th inning is Angels and the Rays. Angels are up 2-0 on this one. Pitching matchup is Jose Soriano versus Zach Littell. 2-run homer or a solo homer by Taylor Ward is the big blow here. Kyron Paris, the new sensation, has not had a hit today. So waiting to see if he can do his thing again too. Angels 7-4. JVT was on Money Moves earlier there, and I was on with his show on ESPN Radio Vegas earlier this morning too. He's an Angels guy, so we had to talk a little Paris on him. But a little early to get so excited about the Angels. They're up, but they're 7-4 right now in a division where some of the top teams are struggling a little.
Yeah, I think this is close to a best case scenario start for the Angels. This is not a team that I had much faith in whatsoever. A team that didn't make a lot of changes in the offseason. You're still dealing with Rendon. You're still, kind of waiting to see when that Mike Trout injury crops up. But no, 7-4, I think you'll absolutely take that. But you look at the odds to make the playoffs right now in the AL, and the market not really buying in quite yet. Still very early in the season, Jeff. Angels plus 750 to make the postseason in the AL.
The Masters is here, and our partner Profit X is offering the best odds all tournament long. Profit X is a peer-to-peer sports exchange available in 40-plus states, the first of its kind in the U.S. You will be able to make your sports picks against other groups of fans rather than against sportsbooks. Exchanges guarantee you the best odds on average by 10 to 20%. You can even request your own odds. Download Profit X today with code VSIN and earn up to $200 in profit cash over your first month. We kind of buried the lead. Luka, oh my goodness, what a crazy game. What a bizarro game all around, but what an awesome individual performance for Luka. 31 points in the first half, 45 points total. Didn't quite get the live betting at 48.5. We were talking about that on text during the game last night, but still, wild game.
Yeah, if you checked at halftime, the live over-under on Luka points was 48.5, finished with a meager 45, quieted down a little bit in the second half, was red hot, of course, coming out of the gates. And, we talked a lot yesterday, Jeff, about just what this environment would look like in Dallas. I think it absolutely lived up to the hype. It was one of the strangest NBA games I have ever watched, where the Mavericks fans in the building were basically cheering for both teams. It's like, it's a big game for Dallas to try to win, and maybe improve their play-in standing. Obviously a huge game for the Lakers in their quest to lock up the 3 seed. We saw the tribute video for Luka. He's understandably emotional, said after the game, like, man, I was watching that. I felt like I couldn't even play in this game. And then of course he comes out and has his highest scoring game in a Lakers uniform and his highest scoring game of the season. I actually thought, though, Jeff, obviously this was Luka's night. It ended with, LeBron and the rest of the Lakers kind of hyping up the crowd, encouraging the Luka chants. LeBron James is the one who brought this game home for the Lakers. I think the Luka thing was kind of a distraction, but this was a very close game. Dallas rallied to make it a 1-possession game early in the fourth quarter. LeBron had 19 of his 27 in the second half, 13 points in the fourth quarter, went on a personal 8-0 run at one point. So the Lakers have now officially avoided the play-in. They have locked up at least the 6th seed, thanks in part to Minnesota losing on Tuesday, Golden State losing last night. They can clinch the 3 with a win over Houston tomorrow.
Yeah, big win for them. Big loss for Golden State. That helped them as well. Denver also won with the first Mike Malone game. So good stuff there. Erik Halterman joins us in about 15 minutes. We're going to talk more hoops next on Prop Points.
You're watching Prop Points on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's time for another edition of Play It or Pass It, NBA style. Busy day yesterday. We talked about a couple of the results. Quickly before we launch into Cavs Pacers and Play It or Pass It, we mentioned in passing, but Golden State losing the way they did. Big impactful loss in terms of the standings, and also just the way that it happened with Harrison Barnes at the buzzer, completing a huge comeback in the fourth quarter for the Spurs.
Yeah, this was one of the more unexpected results, to say the least, last night. Should have been kind of a cruise spot, you would think, for Golden State at home, losing this game straight up to San Antonio. And yeah, Harrison Barnes goes 6 of 9 from the field, 6 of 9 from beyond the arc. Had a really difficult contested look to end up winning that one at the buzzer. And, huge comeback by San Antonio in the fourth quarter. Golden State, outscored the Spurs by 16 in the third and looked like they were cruising toward putting this game away, but took their foot off the pedal. And you got 58 combined points out of Jimmy Butler and Stephen Curry. You'd like to think that would be enough against San Antonio, but these are the games, Jeff. The Golden State's had a few of them lately. Think back to Sunday against the Houston Rockets when Amen Thompson put the clamps on Stephen Curry. There are times when this feels like a 2-man team. And, I think you can expect Stephen Curry to be Stephen Curry for the most part in the postseason. Jimmy Butler, to me, he has a great, postseason track record, but can he give you 24 to 28 points on a night-to-night basis? I'm not sure he can. You get beyond those two, you're asking a lot of Moses Moody. You're asking a lot of Brandon Podziemski, who is very much hit or miss. You're asking Buddy Hield, to come off the bench and hit 4 or 5 threes for you. It's a deep Warriors team, but it's a team that has a lot of kind of specialist role players, right? Kevon Looney's not giving you anything offensively. Guy Santos, you can't really depend on him. It's one of those games that makes you wonder a little bit about Golden State. I think they're a team, would not surprise me if they lost in round one, if they get the wrong matchup. And look, if they end up in the play-in tournament as the 7th seed and they have to play Houston again in round one, it's going to be tough for Houston to do what they did on Sunday for an entire 7-game series. But man, if you're Steph Curry, you're not looking forward to that.
Yeah, and it's also going to be tough for Golden State to do that to avoid some of these type of games on a full series basis, especially as the competition level heats up there too. So yeah, I have a hard time looking at Golden State futures a little bit there. Also have a hard time getting behind Draymond as Defensive Player of the Year, but that's a whole nother story. Play it or pass it. Let's get launch into this. Cavs Pacers. We're going to start off with my local 5, the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton, over 2.5 made threes, plus 105. Play it or pass it?
Yeah, so this is an interesting slate tonight, Jeff. I kind of liked some spots on Tuesday and Wednesday. This one overall, we got just 5 games coming our way. Pacers are 10-point home favorites, and that is because Cleveland is resting Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Max Strus. I don't expect to see a whole lot of Jared Allen. He has been very public about wanting to play all 82 games, so he'll be out there, but probably won't see a full workload. That's what happened in their last game as well. So you look at Halliburton, he's been averaging, close to 3 3-pointers per game over his last 10. This is a meaningful game for Indiana. So you would expect them to play this out, very likely to be the 4 seed, but could technically chase down the Knicks for the 3 or even fall behind Milwaukee for the 5. Halliburton's gone over this number in 4 of his last 7. Cavs do give up a lot of threes, 3rd most in the NBA over the last 10 games. And something that's important here is that this is a home game for the Indiana Pacers. We see some pretty dramatic splits when it comes to Halliburton shooting home versus road. 42% from 3 at home, 36% on the road. So we're going to need this game to avoid devolving into a complete blowout. Indy's been a little bit shaky. Had that weird game against Washington earlier this week. I think Halliburton's minutes can get there at plus money. We will play this one. I'll also tell you, Jeff, that Siakam over 25.5 points plus boards, another prop that I'm eyeing up.
Yeah. Cleveland might have to go bring in Mark Price, Brad Doherty for this game. We'll see with all the guys they're resting. Pacers 28-10 at home, 19-20 on the road. So clearly, home cooking really does matter for this team. Let's move on to the next game. That game is the T-Wolves and Grizzlies. Massive game for seeding purposes in the West. We're going to focus on Rudy Gobert and the rebounding prop there. Rudy Gobert over 12.5 rebounds, plus 105. Play or to pass it?
Yeah, so this is a huge game, like you said. Minnesota now in the play-in zone after losing to Milwaukee. This should be the most competitive game on the slate. Timberwolves a 2-point road favorite. I do lean Minnesota here for what it's worth. Gobert's been a monster on the glass, really since kind of fully ramping up since coming back from that injury a few weeks ago. He's averaging almost 14 boards per game over his last 10. However, he's gone under this number in his last 4 games against Memphis, 5 of his last 6 dating back to last season. And you look at the 2 previous matchups earlier this year, he had 4 rebounds in 25 minutes. That was a game where he was in foul trouble. The other game, though, was not in foul trouble, played only 29 minutes, also only had 4 rebounds. Both of those games were close. There were no blowout scenarios at play. I think we have to lean under here, Jeff. I trust the trends quite a bit. And part of the reason that I do lean under is, one, Julius Randle attacks the glass. Minnesota has other elite rebounders, Jaden McDaniels, even Anthony Edwards for his position, very good rebounder. Zach Edey has also been a rebounding machine on the Memphis side of things. He has the size to match Gobert. You're going to have Jaren Jackson. You're going to have John Morant flying in there, trying to draw fouls. So this is one that I will pass on Rudy Gobert.
All right. Knicks, Pistons. Big game for the Knicks to try to lock up that 3 seed. Jalen Brunson, over 7.5 assists, plus 110. Play it or pass it?
Yeah, this is a tough one to figure out. The Knicks are 3.5-point dogs at Detroit. They're holding a couple of their regulars out tonight. No OG Anunoby, no Josh Hart, no Mitchell Robinson. You do kind of wonder, what the script is going to be tonight for the Knicks. Now, this will be the 3rd game back from injury for Jalen Brunson. He's had 6 and 10 assists in 2 games since returning from injury. Did play a full complement of minutes, 34 and 38 in those 2 games. Knicks are up 2 games right now on Indy, but they do hold the tiebreaker. So they just need to win 1 of their last 3 or have the Pacers lose any of their last 3. I don't think there's a ton of urgency here necessarily for the Knicks. So too many things at play here. I'm going to pass on Jalen Brunson. Detroit top 5 in the NBA in terms of limiting opponents' assists per game over the last 10. Maybe Tibbs makes me look like a moron here and plays Brunson 47 minutes tonight, but I just don't think it's going to be one of those. I would look at Miles McBride over 11.5 points. I think he's going to see a ton of minutes tonight. Maybe check into Karl Anthony Towns over 1.5 threes. That's minus 130. Hasn't been taking a ton of threes over the last few games, but did go over that number in both games against Detroit earlier this season. And obviously, if you're taking Anunoby and you're taking Josh Hart out of the mix, going to need more out of Cat.
Absolutely. Are you still using your buddy's gut instinct as your betting strategy? Come on, you deserve better. Rotowire has the real tools the pros use: rankings, projections, updates, and data that doesn't sleep. Whether you're making picks, setting your fantasy lineup, or placing bets, our award-winning insights give you the edge you need. Get started today by heading over to rotowire.com and entering Roto15 at checkout for 15% off any Rotowire product. Nick and Jeff Erickson here from Rotowire, where you're doing player to pass it. Pels, Bucks, big game here for the Bucks. Bucks to cover -14 versus the Pelicans. Player to pass it.
Well, we have a huge injury question mark that will ultimately swing my opinion on this game, Jeff. Giannis was moved from probable to questionable earlier today. He's on the injury report with an illness. Now, in the time since then, the Bucks have moved from 14 to 15-point favorites. So, read into that as much as you would like. We're looking at an all-time skeleton crew out there for the Pels. Obviously, Zion's done for the year. Trey Murphy's done. CJ McCollum's done. DeJounte Murray's done. They also won't have Yves Missi, Jordan Hawkins, Jose Alvarado, Brandon Boston, Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know how many guys are on this roster, but this is going to be one of the worst, units that we see essentially for the entire season here. And the Pelicans really don't have anything to play for. They can't get into the bottom three. They're basically locked into the fourth worst record. Bucks win and a Pistons loss tonight would give Milwaukee the 5 seed. Those last 2 games against Detroit wouldn't even matter. So we should see a motivated Milwaukee team. If Giannis plays, I will take this number, but these teams did just play last week without Giannis, and it was a low-scoring game. The Bucks did not cover a 15-point number in that one. So a couple kind of machinations here. If Giannis plays, give me the Bucks at that number. If Giannis doesn't play, I would shift over to the under 221.5 here. I very, very, very much worry about the Pelicans holding up their end of the bargain scoring-wise.
Yeah, the Pels might have to dig up like Pistol Pete Maravich or any of the other old New Orleans Jazz players there to try to fill a roster here tonight there. So it's pretty grim. This is what you get in the end of the season in April NBA. It's tough. We got time for one more. Hawks versus Nets. Player to pass it. Hawks to cover -13 versus the Nets.
So this is another number that's moved since we discussed it earlier today. Now up to 14 in favor of Atlanta. The Nets have nothing to play for here. They're essentially locked into the 6th worst record. So mission accomplished, I guess, if you're the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Nets did beat the Hawks straight up as 6.5-point dogs less than a month ago. They are 7-3 against the number in their last 10 games as a double-digit dog. You look at the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, they've been a better team, but of late, they failed to beat Utah, Philly, Charlotte, Philly again. And of course, that Nets game by more than 13 points just in the last couple of weeks. Do have some absences on the Brooklyn side of things. No Russell, no Cam Johnson. Again, it's an important game for Atlanta to try to hang on to the 8 seed, but I don't trust it. I don't know if I trust this Hawks team. The Nets have found ways to hang around with superior opponents, especially teams like Atlanta that are hanging around the middle zone in the Eastern Conference. So feel free to clip this one, Michael. It might look stupid 8 hours from now, but give me the Brooklyn Nets to cover the 14.
Woohoo! Let's go Nets here. Yeah, you got to get that seeding in the NBA Southeast Division Invitational, also known as the play-in tournament there. Erik Halterman joins us on the Progressive Guest Line next on Prop Points.
Watching Prop Points on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Prop Points, Nick Whalen, Jeff Erickson, hanging out with you on this wonderful Thursday. Round 1 of the Masters underway. Corey Connors in the clubhouse with a 68. He's tied atop the leaderboard at 4 under with Tyrrell Hatton, 4 under through 13. Justin Rose making a climb up the leaderboard as well. -4 through 8 holes, 4 birdies on the card for Rose. Scotty Scheffler hanging around at 3 under through 14. Aaron Rye, Harris English, both in the clubhouse with 70s on the board. Rory McIlroy still at 1 under, just finished up the 4th hole. John Rahm even through 3. So if you're taking a look at the live board over at the DraftKings Sportsbook, Scotty Scheffler now plus 220 to win the tournament. Rory 6-1. Bryson DeChambeau plus 850. Taking a look at what's going on in Major League Baseball. Guardians behind Gavin Williams holding on to a 5-1 lead over the White Sox. Twins, Bailey Ober versus Michael Wacha. That's a 1-1 game in the second. The LA Angels opening it up against the Tampa Bay Rays. That is now 10-1 as we head to the bottom of the 5th. Joe Adell with a couple of homers, Mike Trout with his 4th homer of the season, and Taylor Ward with 2 home runs for the Angels. All right, we got Erik Halterman, our MLB editor, one of our betting experts over at Rotowire.com, joining us right now on the Progressive Guest Line. Erik, welcome to the show, man. Kind of a strange MLB slate, just 6 games today. 3 of those, of course, in action. 1 more starting up shortly. That is Brewers Rockies. 1 game in the mid-afternoon window, and then just 1 true night game. Your Philadelphia Phillies taking on Spencer Schwellenbach and the Atlanta Braves. We'll start with that game. Eric, what are you looking at in Phillies Braves?
Yeah, really, that's the only game we'll ever need. Should be such a fun matchup between 2 NL East favorites here. I guess for everybody who doesn't want to watch this game, just watch Kyron Paris highlights all night or something. He's provided us with plenty. But this Phillies Braves should be a classic. 2 really good pitchers going in this one. And I wasn't sure I'd be saying that given who these pitchers were. But Spencer Schwellenbach, who definitely showed something last year and was increasingly a fantasy buzz type of pitcher, somebody that was going early and earlier in drafts. It looks very correct so far. Has not given up an earned run. He has a whip of 0.29, 30% strikeout rate against a 2% walk rate for Schwellenbach. But on the other side, Jesus Luzardo, a trade acquisition by the Phillies, has been excellent as well. A 150 ERA, a whip under 1 through his first 2 starts, a 41% strikeout rate. Luzardo is somebody who has certainly shown his talent, doesn't necessarily have durability, and we should worry about that, for fantasy, for season-long assessments of the Phillies rotation, that sort of thing. But for 1 game today, I don't think Luzardo is all that likely to get hurt in the middle of this one. So it should be a real pitcher's duel between 2 promising pitchers who are off to excellent starts. Only one of the lineups has really done anything, but maybe there's still plenty of time for Atlanta's lineup to wake up and make this one a game. So I think we should have a classic matchup tonight.
Yeah, Atlanta's lineup, it has been a struggle. Not as bad as, say, like the Astros, but still 82 WRC plus through the season so far, 2-9 start in the season. They've already dubbed themselves a pretty deep hole in the NL East. 6 games behind the Phillies. Phillies 8-3, the Braves 2-9 so far. How are we handicapping this NL East?
Yeah, the way the lines seem to be going right now, it's Phillies slight favorites ahead of the Mets and Atlanta a decent ways behind them, but still very much in the race. And I think that's correct. It's only been 2 weeks. You can only build up so much of a deficit for Atlanta. And remember, we did expect Atlanta to be at a deficit to start this season, I think, because they're missing their 2 best players. They're still without Ronald Acuna Jr. They're still without Spencer Strider. I don't think, maybe outside of the most diehard Atlanta fans, I'm not sure anybody would have picked Atlanta to be winning the NL East after 2 weeks. They absolutely still have a chance to win it after 6 weeks. I don't think it's a crazy bet, but I don't think the odds are particularly appealing either. I think this is one that is being assessed pretty correctly by the books. So if you think that you particularly like one of these teams more than the broader public, I think you can make a case for any of them. I think it's correct that the Phillies are the favorites. I think that rotation is just incredible, and they've got Andrew Painter ready to go mid-season as well when they lose somebody. I think the back of the bullpen's very good for the Phillies. The lineup's good enough. Can't necessarily handle as many injuries as you'd like. It's an older team without great depth, but if the Phillies are healthy, they absolutely should be the favorites. And the Mets in the middle, I think, are pretty fairly priced as well. I don't trust their rotation really as well as the Phillies. I think that's the main reason why I would have them a bit behind. But, a team with their resources, if they're right in it at the deadline, they could easily add another starting pitcher or 2 and look like the favorite. So I think the way things are going, I don't have a strong lean for any of the 3, but I don't think any of them is mispriced. I think if you're a big fan of the Phillies, Mets, or Braves, you can make a case for any of the 3 at this moment in time.
I might make a case later about the Braves being a little mispriced in some of their bets. I'm a little bit more pessimistic than you are about their long-term chances, given the extent of their hole. Noteworthy about the World Series odds. See that they have shorter World Series odds than the Mets, who are at 8-4. That caught my eye, and maybe that's because of the respective pitching staffs, but I still thought that was kind of arresting to see that.
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess the rest of the logic would be that once Acuna and Strider are back, isn't this a better roster than the Mets? So obviously they're going to have a tougher time just making it to the playoffs. But if you told me right now, all 3 of the Phillies, Braves, and Mets made the playoffs, and let's say that the winner of that division got the 3 seed, so none of them have a bye. If they all were in essentially the exact same position at the start of the playoffs, I might take the Braves first out of that group. So I think that makes some sense. They just have to get there. They have to stop this slide from going too deep. But if they just remain competitive enough, once Strider's back, once Acuna's back, and, not necessarily just right away, but once they've gotten, a couple weeks under their belt, maybe a month, I think we're going to see a charge from the Braves at some point. It's just a matter of, is it going to come too late? I think that those World Series odds, not necessarily crazy, but you'd wish that the payout would be a bit better given the hole they've dug themselves at the start of the season.
Get back to the Thursday MLB betting board in a moment. But first, the VSiN Summer Special is here, and it's the best deal of the season. For just $59, you can get full VSiN Pro access to everything we do from now through August 1st. That's 50% off the regular monthly price. From Augusta to the NFL Draft, MLB action, the NBA and NHL playoffs, plus the Kentucky Derby, VSiN Pro has you covered all season long. Sign up now, and you'll get expert picks, including all of our best bets for the Masters, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 video access on the fantastic VSiN Watch app, plus our Kentucky Derby betting guide and the NFL betting guide when it drops later this summer, giving you a head start on football season. Every sport, every edge, one price. Get full access now through August 1st for just $59 over at vsin.com/subscribe. That's VSiN, VSIN.com/subscribe. Erik Halterman joining us on the Progressive Guest Line, helping us break down this Thursday MLB slate. Eric, we got the Brewers and the Rockies. This has been a dominant series so far for the Milwaukee Brewers. They've won 3 in a row, 7 of their last 8, put up 17 runs last night. They've outscored the Rockies 24-3 so far in the first 2 games of this series. But I think you're forecasting a bit of a turnaround here for Colorado. So what do you like?
Yeah, I think given the pitching matchup in this one with the Rockies, it looks like slight underdogs at some of the books. I would probably take their side, the home side here, because this is Quinn Priester's first MLB start of the year, his first start for the Brewers. They acquired him in a trade from Boston because they've been overwhelmed by starting pitcher injuries already this early into the season. And Quinn Priester, maybe there's something there, but he really has not shown much promise through 99 2/3 major league innings. It's a 6.23 ERA, a 1.56 whip, and crucially, a 15% strikeout rate. I think taking the under on his strikeout prop, which I think is even down at 3.5, pretty reasonable, actually, given that pitches don't move very well at Coors Field, and Quinn Priester can't strike out anybody anywhere. Also, he made his first start of the year in the minors and only threw 4 innings. So I doubt that he's going to have a chance to throw more than 5. And for a pitcher who, again, a 15.2% strikeout rate for his career, even if he goes 5, it's probably only 3 strikeouts. And then Ryan Feltner on the other side never has great numbers because he pitches for the Rockies. But when you park adjust his numbers, he tends to end up coming out okay. Not exciting, but somebody who would look like a viable number 4 starter on a lot of teams. I don't trust the Rockies lineup or anything, but it's not like the Brewers have a great one either. So given that they're throwing Quinn Priester out there, I think that's a pretty tough assignment for him. So I'd look at the Rockies.
Eric, about 30 seconds left. Red Sox, Blue Jays, no Vlad Guerrero in the lineup, so that's gone to -125 for the Red Sox. What do you like in this game?
Yeah, that does help the Red Sox, but man, Walker Buehler has not looked great through his first 2 starts, and Chris Bassett actually has a 31% strikeout rate against a 4% walk rate for Chris Bassett. Lineups are close enough. I don't mind taking Bassett and the Blue Jays here, and particularly if it's Bassett over Buehler that I like. Maybe rather than taking a small payout on the money line, just go for Bassett to get the win. I think Bassett is a pitcher you trust to go at least 5 or 6 innings. So I think that could be an interesting prop here. Chris Bassett to pick up a win. Although, again, would love to have Vladdy on his side if you're betting that one.
There we have it. Erik Halterman helping us break down his best bets for Thursday's baseball slate. You can check out his work at Rotowire. Check him out on Twitter at Erik_Halterman. Give you updates on the Masters. Talk some NFL draft on the other side. Coming up on Prop Points.
You're watching Prop Points on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Prop Points. Nick Whalen, Jeff Erickson here with you. Give you an update on what's happening at Augusta. Still a 3-way tie at the top of the leaderboard. Corey Connors in the clubhouse with a 68. Tiro Hatton also 4 under through 14. And Justin Rose continuing to play well. He's 4 under through 8. Scotty Scheffler just behind, the only golfer at 3 under. He's through 14 holes. Bunch of guys at 2 under. Jeff, Aaron Rai, Harris English, Jason Day, Denny McCarthy, Bryson DeChambeau among them. DeChambeau 2 under through 4. And, we just told you about 15 minutes ago that he was plus 850 to win the tournament. Now down to 7-1 on the live board at DraftKings. Rory 5-1, Scotty Scheffler plus 225. Jon Rahm now 28-1. He is 1 over 2 bogeys in his last 3 holes. All right, Jeff, we got a lot to get to in this final segment. Make It Rain with Adam Shine, of course, coming up next here on VSiN. Want to talk a little NFL draft. We are creeping up on the NFL draft. Exactly 2 weeks away. That'll be in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Very much looking forward to this, Jeff. Still so much unsettled. It's kind of a strange draft where we're not going to see 6-7 receivers go in round 1. It's a really heavy running back class. We don't necessarily have 4 or 5 elite quarterbacks at the top either. And I think the most controversial of those quarterbacks, especially if you're looking into the draft markets, has to be Shedeur Sanders. There's been some Saints buzz of late. They are now the favorites to draft Shedeur Sanders, plus 205 at DK. The Steelers, are meeting with Sanders. They are plus 350. His over-under, as far as draft slots, is set at 8.5. It is juiced to the over, which would mean after pick 8. How do you break this down right now?
Well, and the Steelers odds are the ones that caught my eye. It's because Aaron Rodgers still hasn't been signed by them. I think that's one of the things that just keeps dragging on and on. Well, I wonder if that's going to change. But, the longer this goes, the more likely they're going to draft. They've had 3 quarterbacks do their 30 visits with the Steelers. So that's interesting. The Saints, Sanders would actually be a good fit. Carr, quarterbacks for 1 year. Sanders kind of is his prodigy for a season, and then next year takes over. I think that it's interesting that the Giants and the Browns aren't favored to take him, but they also get 2 bites of the apple potentially too. Not, if they pass on them at 2 and 3 respectively with the Browns and the Giants, they could trade back into the back end of the first round. They could take them at the start of the second round. The Browns in particular have some draft capital to be able to do that. So I don't think it would be a total shocker if they did something like that, where he jumps back into the back of the first round there, because I don't think there's too many quarterback hungry teams at the back end of the first round that really want him. And that's why the Saints are kind of an interesting team there. But Saints are kind of early too. So that's, it is really kind of an interesting draft because there's so much uncertainty this week as we approach draft day here. There's so many teams that could go this route.
Yeah, I'm not ruling out the Browns plus 450. I'm not ruling out the Giants 4-1. I think Cleveland in particular still has a need to fill at quarterback, maybe more than the Giants do. I mean, they've doubled down on Jameis and Russell Wilson. But I mean, given what we saw with the Atlanta Falcons last year, Jeff, nothing is off the table for me when it comes to drafting a young quarterback. And you bring up an interesting point, with where the Saints sit at 9, where the Steelers sit at 21. And, there is, like, after New Orleans, there's a long list of teams that just, I don't think are really all that interested in adding a young quarterback. I think there are a couple teams you could make a case for, right? It's like, Miami, do you want to invest in a Tua succession plan? That feels a little extreme. It's like, do you go back to the well for the second time in 3 years if you're the Colts? Probably not. Arizona, are you looking for a different option outside of Kyler Murray? Like, those are all stretches to me. So I think it makes sense. You got to go all the way down to 21 for Pittsburgh. Now, I was talking about this with Joe Sorallo the other night on his show. And what worries me is that there's not a good track record of taking a quarterback in that range. It doesn't happen all that often. There are exceptions, right? You think of someone like Aaron Rodgers falling all the way to Green Bay, Lamar Jackson being drafted late in the first round, Jordan Love. But there are a lot more examples of quarterbacks in that kind of middle zone of the first round, kind of a dead zone for quarterbacks, who don't end up working out. They kind of end up being the type of player in the NFL that, the prospect evaluations would lead you toward, right? There's a reason that they're not being drafted in the top 5, like the elite quarterback prospects. You think about Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Paxton Lynch, Johnny Manziel, EJ Manuel, guys like that. Is Shedeur Sanders that type of player to you? Is there enough juice with him that if you are the Saints at 9, you really feel good about him being your future?
I think he's better than like the Pickett's of this world. And yet he may not, it could be somewhere in between. Like, I don't view him also as a guy that you pass on Travis Hunter for. He's not a guy that you pass on some of these elite guys at the top, at other positions. I don't think he has that much positional juice. So I think it would be a mistake for the Browns to take him at 2. I think he's maybe a floor guy, but maybe not necessarily a super high ceiling guy, if that makes any sort of sense. So I don't think I would go there. I feel like it's probably a better chance that you can get some value early second round. And I know we're going to talk about another quarterback on this list in Jackson Dart too. And I get all the Will Levis vibes with Jackson Dart. Like people are trying to manifest him into the first round. And I don't think he's really suited well for that. I'd rather just go ahead and, go after Sanders than Dart for sure. I think Dart was a perfect system guy, whereas Sanders, like he's playing behind this horrific offensive line in Colorado. So it's really hard to evaluate him a little bit there from that standpoint. But I do think he's got a decent floor. I just don't know about the ceiling with him.
So we've talked a lot about this running back class, and you have the one elite prospect in Ashton Jeanty, but you have so many names, guys who we could see go later in round one. I think, in my opinion, more likely scattered throughout, rounds 2 through 4. But it's interesting to look at, the odds to draft Ashton Jeanty, and the Las Vegas Raiders have emerged as the favorite over these last few days, now down to minus 150 at the DK Sportsbook. The Bears are next at 3-1. You got the Jags at 6-1. I will tell you, as a Jaguars fan, I don't love that idea. Saints 13-1, Cowboys 14-1. Could absolutely see that being a Jerry Jones pick. Patriots 15-1, and then the Jets at 20-1. Raiders taking a running back at 6. Jeff, is that something you could foresee? It would be a very Raiders thing to do, in my mind.
It would be a Raiders thing, and I think it'd be a Pete Carroll thing. I think he loves to get that stud running back. He wants to build through the running game. So, yeah, I could absolutely see it there. I think they have some other positional needs, too. I wonder about that offensive line and how good it is at run blocking. This is selfish from a fantasy standpoint. I don't want to necessarily see Jeanty on the Raiders, but I love Genty's balance. I think he's actually one of the few backs in this class that is actually a decent pass pro guy. And I maybe worry about a little bit, like, at the very end, does he get run down? But he's so tough to bring down. I do love him there. I think he'd be great in Chicago with the way they upgraded their interior offensive line. I give you 2 wild cards too. Denver at 25-1. I think that could be fun because Sean Payton is absolutely a trade up to get his guy type of guy. I think in Denver clearly is going to draft a running back. Just a question of, are they going to move up so they can get Jeanty, or are they going to be settled for like Hampton or one of the Ohio State backs or something of that nature? The other thing about the Raiders, too, is they have Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to just go ahead and get one of those 2 Ohio State running backs, or maybe both even as a possibility as well. The other wild card team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think they'll trade up. I think it's unlikely that they can have the draft capital to even pull it off without a second round pick. But they brought in 8 running backs in their 30 visits so far. They are absolutely going to take a running back at some point in time. If they don't take it in the first round at 21, then they'll probably have to take one in the third round. So I just think that they find a way to try to get around that there. And at 35-1, it sounds like a fun little sprinkle.
Look at us talking about teams trading up for a running back, Jeff. Like it was a sin not too long ago just to take a running back in round 1, let alone give up draft capital to move up and take a running back. But it does feel like that tide is starting to shift. I'm with you on the Broncos, by the way. That is my most fun landing spot for Ashton Jeanty, throwing him in with Bo Nix and that young core in Denver. Broncos 25-1 to draft Ashton Jeanty. All right, we got to give you some G-Bank best bets before we head out and turn it over to Make It Rain with Adam Shine. Those best bets are brought to you by G-Bank, the official bank of VSiN. G-Bank is up in the ante with up to a $750 bonus for new G-Bank Visa Signature Card customers. New customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from account opening get a $250 bonus. And if you spend $50,000 on gaming, sports app loads within 30 days of opening your account, you'll receive another $500 bonus, so potentially $750 in bonus cash. Apply now at VSiN.com/GBank. That's VSiN.com/GBank. Subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions apply. Jeff, we're both going baseball today with our best bets. I'm doing the unthinkable, but I'll let you go first.
All right, I'll keep it short. Atlanta Braves to not make the playoffs, still plus money, plus 150. They lost last night to drop to 2-9. No team that started 2-9 has made the playoffs. Best I can see is Astros last year 7-18 and won the division. But I'm going to take that plus money to not make the playoffs.
Brewers money line, baby. Give me the Brewers. They're staying hot.
Let's go.
We're going head to head with Erik Halterman on this. We are embracing the variance that comes with Quinn Priester, baby. Brewers money line at Colorado. Justin Rose, by the way, just took over the solo lead, finishing with a 31 on the front That's going to do it for us here on Prop Points. Make It Rain with Adam Shine coming up next. He's going to have VSiN's Patrick Maher on to give his best bets in basketball and baseball. Stay tuned.